Let's start with some good news for drivers, Ari, on this Friday, wet, kind of gray Friday.
Yeah, it does look like that outside, doesn't it, Cynthia? But yes, I do have some good news. Gas prices are set to drop in the GTA at midnight, according to NPro, by 1 cent to about $1.49 a liter at most gas stations. Now, the national average sits at $1.52, and that's down 10 cents from the August average and 14 cents lower than a year ago. Now, what's driving all of these declines? Well, the big thing is what is global demand concerns, and especially out of China, where Saudi Aramco has lowered the official selling price there to try to spark a little more consumer-driven demand there. China is the largest consumer of crude oil, and this is even as the oil cartel, OPEC Plus, paused its plans to increase production capacity by 2 months, and as U.S. stockpiles dwindle. So there simply is a lot of oil out there in global oil markets, but not enough people using it. So simply a supply and demand situation. And Cynthia, there's no real end in sight with the price per barrel continuing to drop today.
Okay. Now, Ari, this is not great news. It's getting harder to find a job. Canada's unemployment rate has hit a 7-year high. So we got jobs data both in the U.S. and on our side of the border today, Cynthia, and both pretty much pointing to the idea that employment is starting to slow down, and a lot of it has to do with high interest rates. Companies are simply not expanding as much because of high borrowing costs, and that also hurts people trying to look for work right now. So the labor market added more than 20,000 jobs last month, which does sound like a lot, but it's really not keeping up with population growth. So unemployment actually increased by more than expected to 6.6%. That's the highest level since 2017 if you exclude the pandemic years. Now, the Bank of Canada has dropped rates 3 times already, including this week, but it may not be happening fast enough to trickle down to these economies. So they might want to be a little more aggressive if they want to spark a little more economic activity, Cynthia. Okay. And Boeing, this is fascinating, set to bring its beleaguered Starliner aircraft back to work. I've been following this one.
And the thing is, Cynthia, it's coming back empty. The astronauts that went up to the International Space Station are staying there. Now, I don't like saying stuck. They're not stuck there. They're kind of like in an airport. Their flight's been delayed or postponed. They're just waiting in limbo, but it's been a few months.
I would feel stuck.
Yeah, especially in space. I mean, I've always wanted to go to space, but if I knew I was going to be up there for months on end waiting for a ride, I don't know. But yes, the Starliner space capsule, it did successfully dock with the International Space Station, but Boeing says that it needs to return empty because it's simply too risky, considering it ran into a few problems once it did dock with the space station, including with its thrusters, and there was some sort of helium leak. It's beyond my pay grade exactly what happened, Cynthia, but Boeing does want to wants to avoid anything risky, so the 2 astronauts, Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams, will instead return home with a SpaceX mission, and that's likely going to be in February of next year. So I guess they're going to be having their Christmas turkey in space, Cynthia, which sounds nice, but again, I don't know if it's what I would choose to do.
You just hope they're getting along.
I feel like that's maybe part of their training, too.
True. I'm sure they are. They look happy. I love her hair.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Ari, on that note, have a great weekend. Happy Friday.
You too, Cynthia.